good economy versus a great economy versus a bad economy during that time frame is actually kind of difficult to say what was good or bad because now we're just looking back 20 years and we're saying, or close to 20 years now, and we're saying, wow, that wasn't the greatest thing to keep quantitative easing going because now we have a bigger problem than we did in 2008, you know?
Got it. Okay. And so, okay. So then the next question was, you said that when it comes to tariffs, um, the government is kind of split three ways as far as like who takes on, the burden of it. It's the consumers on one end, the sellers on the other end, and also the government that's kind of in between, right?
Yeah. So
What dictates that? Like, what dictates those numbers and what percentages of those parties take on, what amounts of those tariffs?
yeah, so that's not, there's no like real formula for that, except for what can they change in their pricing power. So if they can price it into the market for consumers, they will. Absolutely. If they could do it 100%, they will. Say, for instance, iPhones, right? Let's take iPhones, for instance,
Yeah.
right? Say they're coming from China and all of a sudden there's a 25% tariff on iPhones. We already know iPhones are expensive. Say they're $1,000, right? And we know they're more than that, but let's just say an iPhone is $1,000
Right, right.
and there's a 25% tariff. If Apple can charge $1,250 for an iPhone, they're absolutely going to try it,
Right.
right? They're not going to take on the burden of themselves. Hey, we're importing our goods from China there, and the Foxconn or whoever is making their iPhones now in China
Yeah.
is not going to take on much of that burden either,
Yeah.
right? Unless they have to. So if us as humans are saying, hey, look, like we're taxed out. I mean, there's people already right now. It's like they're saying, hey, look, I'm not even going to up. There's people who upgrade every year. Like, look, I'm not going to upgrade every year. I'm going to upgrade every 3 years now. So now if they still want to create revenue, Apple, for instance, they want to create revenue. They're not going to be, if you at $1,250, people are saying, hey, look, I'm going to wait 3 years. Maybe they say, okay, maybe we'll put 1,050. The Foxconn's going to have to take $50 an iPhone, and we're going to have to take 100 or 200, whatever the case is, right?
Mm.
150 hit, right? And there's always profit in there, so they have some wiggle room to figure this out. So it's like, what can the market bear? Is
Okay,
really
but hold
the
on.
question.
Then in that situation, let's just say the 25%, the 250. Let's say Apple says we'll take on 150, and let's say Foxconn, then that's the manufacturer in China. They're taking on the other $100, right?
Hmm.
So then, how does that benefit the economy? How does that stimulate the government? As it sounds like that's what the effort is.
Well,
How's it
so
pay attention?
yeah, so that 25% is going as a tax to the federal government. See what I mean? So
Oh, gotcha. So they're taking the
yes,
250 per
yeah.
unit, and then now we're trying to figure out a way to get that money back.
In the simplest terms, the federal government's taking that 250 from them. They're
Yeah.
already paying
Okay.
it. The companies are going to pay it, and then the company itself
Right.
is going to try and figure out who do we pass this on to? Us, the consumer, the company importing it, right? Or we're importing it, but Foxconn is shipping it. So
Right.
are they going to be able to like cut costs in manufacturing? You right? Are they going to be able to cut costs in something else to kind of balance that out, or are they going to have to just try and push it all on the consumer? And I just don't think the consumer is really at a point where we can take on more of that tax. So maybe in 2017, or sorry, 2017 and 18, when those tariffs first came in, we could take on more of that burden
Yeah.
as consumers, but I don't think we can take on much more of it at this point. So I think either the company's going to have to pay for it, somebody else is paying for it than the consumer if they want to sell product,
But I think you
right?
bring up a great product because iPhone is almost like can't live without
Yeah.
kind of product, or just smartphones in general that are mainly made somewhere else. So it kind of turns into, with certain items, being a benefit because they are just going to figure it out. You know what I mean? Like the exporting company is like, that's our biggest buyer. Like, we're gonna still make sure this works. So if I gotta eat $100, I'm gonna eat $100, right? If I gotta
Well,
eat 250, it's still, as long as it benefits my book still, because I'm pretty sure that at the amount that they actually spend on parts and labor, actually, create the device, the
yeah.
amount that we're buying it at, there's so much markup in it already that I'm pretty sure even with that tax, you're still not cutting them off at the knees as a business, right?
Well, I think with Apple too, we have to remember like they have their cloud business as well. You know, you have the iCloud that you have to pay for every month, and as people get more and more phones, like people aren't deleting the pictures off their phone. You know, when they get a new phone, they're just getting more storage, and then they take more, and then it just goes on their iCloud, and then they have to upgrade. So there's a whole another business there
That's
that
true.
they have, involved.
Yeah.
But that's just a small example for Apple. Like the whole point of this is like major scheme of the current administration is not necessarily just the tariff. The tariff might have some pain for us as consumers in the beginning for a lot of products. But the biggest point here is he's saying, hey, look, if you come over and you manufacture here in the US, we're going to give you a better tax rate as well. So we're saying, hey, look, we're only going to tax you 15% opposed to what the current tax rate on corporations is, which I think is like maybe 20%. And I could be wrong on that number, but I'm pretty sure it's close to that. So he's saying instead of 20%, we're going to tax you guys 15% to make your goods here in the US, right? So it's really in his mind, he's saying, look, we're going to tax people trying to move stuff here that we could make here. Let's get these plants rolling again, get jobs created in more spaces than technology, or government. Because, one of the reasons we have a large government now is because, like, what are you going to do? You're going to work in technology, healthcare, financial services. I mean, a lot of these things that we do are service based. We're not really building cars as much as we used to here in the US. We're not, using manufacturing. We're not making as much coal with some of the past, administration's goals of getting rid of that. Which, so in his mind, he's like saying, hey, let's get these machines turned back on. Let's start creating products here in the US again and get this ball rolling on the economy. Is he going to be able to do that all in 4 years? I'm highly doubtful.